Hi, Maria. Welcome to Humans and Brands. Thanks for joining me.
Good morning. Happy
I'm excited to
Friday.
have you here. Happy Friday. Remind me of where you are in the world.
I am in San Francisco.
Okay, nice. Proper San Francisco or like the
Yes,
suburbs?
I am in the Lower Haight, which is where the
Okay. Yep.
whole hippie movement started.
Yes. Yes. I've been there
So
many times.
we live in 100-year-old Victorian,
Wow.
and
Cool.
yeah, it's a
Isn't
beautiful
it
place
funny
to
that
live.
like 100 years old in America is so old, but like if you said 100-year-old flat in Paris, they'd be like, oh, a new construction.
I know. I lived in Barcelona for 5 years, and we lived, I think,
Cool.
in a 200 or 300-year-old building. So
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's very cool. So you just were telling me you went to an amazing conference and you felt super inspired. And the thing that you just said to me that I was like, wait, I want to start recording is that you feel like we're living in a renaissance. And I have to dig in more to that because I feel like people right now are so afraid of what AI is going to do and take their jobs and all this stuff. So like tell me a good news story.
So I was at this event. It was the Notion Summit, and that entire team, I think they have a team of 1,200. I have not felt the energy of the space that we're in. We're in Fort Mason. They were unveiling their workplace agents, and hearing the founder's story. I spent the whole time just talking to all the participants and guests. I've got to be honest, it's people that I don't normally hang out with. I'm normally around brands and marketers and, tech platforms, our ecosystem. But I intentionally went to this summit because Notion is one of the top 10 AI companies in the world. They're generating 500 million in revenue, and they are completely transforming the way people work. And what excites me
Wow.
the most about AI is that it will free up the capacity of what we're all calling busy work so that people
Mm.
can come together and connect and
Mm-hmm.
fully express their zone of genius. So,
Hmm.
what I was feeling, why I called it the Renaissance, the feeling of the Renaissance, is that when we are in creativity, and what I'm noticing is that people are coming together more in person, in real life, is really what I'm most excited about. And more people are also practicing mindfulness and being in the present moment. So when you're engaging with people, without being transactional, without wanting something, but just being curious, like I'm an energy person. And that
Mm.
is where I literally came home last night and I had to just completely, I cut off from any stimulus. And it's like when you come home from a concert, your ears are just ringing, and I had this huge smile on my face going, wow, it is
Wow.
back. Like it is happening.
That's awesome. I love that. It's funny. I was just thinking, obviously, I was telling you that I just got back from Burning Man, and we had kind of connected on that a little bit when we were going back and forth. That is what is so special to me about being there is that you're in this place with no cell phones, with no meetings that you have to run to, with nothing else that you have to do except be in that present moment and like connect with someone and look them in the eyeballs. And I think that that is going to become so much more important as we go into this world of like AI, like IRL, human to human, looking someone in the eye and like really connecting with them. I think you're right. That's going to be, you could feel it. You can feel that authenticity.
Well, what human beings crave is to be witnessed. The greatest gift that we can give to another is a moment of pause and presence and with curiosity, wherever the conversation leads to. But the sacred art of listening and human connection, alchemy, combine that with this technology revolution that's upon us. Like I can't even imagine what's possible,
Mhm.
because it's almost like we're living in a sci-fi. I just started
Mhm.
watching Foundation, and it's
Oh
wild because that
yeah.
book was written in the 50s, with the
Mhm.
mathematician and the creativity and just this notion of what does it mean to protect Mother Earth. And I've been listening to some of your recent interviews, And I just love that marketers care about other human beings. They care about
Mhm.
themselves, they care about their families, they care about their teams, they care about their customers. And I've always believed that marketers hold the keys to unlocking human emotion. And now that we have all these channels to reach people through storytelling and through selecting real everyday human beings, not models, and celebrating people's differences and diversity and like that alchemy is is the energy that I feel every single day. And so,
And
yeah.
I love that. Do you feel like I almost wonder if marketing also isn't like in a time of change as well, because it used to be, I think, more of exposing a lack and sort of like preying on a lack of like, if you want love, buy this Coca Cola. If you want family, buy, like, and now I think it is shifting to be more real and more about like connecting to a feeling and connecting to, you know, like, I don't know. It seems more. I hate to use the word authentic again, but it seems like it's going through a transformation as well.
That is what people demand of brands. As soon as advertising and marketing was decentralized and the power shifted from Madison Avenue to real everyday people, and the distribution channels shifted from mainstream media to social networks. And as a
Mhm.
marketer, you have a split second to earn somebody's attention, and
Mhm.
now those metrics that are like, how long do people watch the video? Do they comment? Do they share? And then now you can even track the ripple effect of the movements that you
Mhm.
launch. Like
Mhm.
that is where we're at. Like marketers are becoming alchemists of emotions. And
Mm.
and so it forces marketers to spend more time with their customers. I was listening to the Viore CMO, how she was talking about how she loves to go into a Viore store and just listen to what the customers are saying. And whether it be in real life, whether it be through social listening, I feel like the keys to truly architecting stories that resonate is through comments, it's through
Mm.
Reddit, and
Mhm. Mhm.
versus traditional focus groups that feel so inauthentic. And let me pay you
Mhm.
to come and tell us what you have to say about this topic. And
Absolutely.
so we have all the tools that we need to listen, and
Mhm.
then from there architect a story, but that story needs to be resonant with what the brand stands for. Why does this brand exist? What's the founding story? What is it that this brand cares about? And it's the cross-pollinating of what truly matters to people, understanding when you're reaching people, how you're reaching them, and then being of service to your
Mm.
customers.
Mhm, mhm. Well, speaking of, being of service and sort of like your authenticity, what led you to start a company 13 years ago when you co-founded Linqia, and what were you deciding you wanted to bring into the world?
So I actually founded my first company when I was 18. So
Wow. So
that
you've just it's
was,
in your bones, like you're just a serial entrepreneur.
it was 30, gosh, how old am I? It was 32 years ago. And it actually, my journey as an entrepreneur was forged in the fire.
Mm.
My boyfriend at the time had a severe accident. He ripped all the nerves out of his spinal cord, got thrown into chronic pain. I was at university studying marketing communications. I was working for a senator, managing his community. And and my boyfriend was thrust into the field of personal development in a way that you can't even fathom. He was reading Course in Miracles, quantum physics. We were
Wow.
meditating, and he was growing so fast that he actually gave me an ultimatum one day to say, "Hey, if you're going to keep up with me, you need to like tool up." And he sent me to a Tony Robbins event where I walked across hot coals, across fire. I learned how, I reprogrammed my entire thinking. And my mission when I was 18, 17, 18 was to become financially independent because I believed that money gave you freedom to choose. And that is what my parents didn't have coming from a communist country. And so I ended up starting my first company when I was, working for this senator because it was the digital revolution and that's what I was studying. And I took on one of the biggest companies in Australia, Westfield, and they incubated my first business. And I grew a team of 10. We studied all of the greatest direct response marketers, uh, Corey Ruddle, Jay Abraham, Seth Godin, permission marketing. And for the following 8 years, built a content marketing agency that was all around the psychology of how people make purchasing decisions and invested all the money into real estate. So by the time that we were 27, my boyfriend and I, we'd bought 50 properties and I was burnt out. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to nourish myself. And I booked myself into a 10-day Vipassana to just sit in silence and meditate for 10 days, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And in that 10-day Vipassana, I got a clear message to say, you need to leave this country. You need to leave this relationship. You need to leave your family and your
Wow.
friends. You are so much more than retiring, and go discover your purpose. Go figure out who you are, what you're passionate about, because what you've just endured over the last 10 years with this boyfriend, it's like living 50 years in 10 years. So I
Wow.
left Australia, went traveling around the world for 2 years. I went to every country you can imagine. I went to India, Morocco, Mexico, Russia, and I just spoke to people, rickshaw
Hmm.
drivers. I met the Prince of Saudi Arabia. I met the full gamut of humanity. And I discovered what my passions and I discovered my purpose. And my purpose was to bring more consciousness into advertising, more meaning,
Hmm.
more authenticity.
Hmm.
And that was the greatest gift of,
Wow.
of those travels.
And why advertising? Like, that just something that, like, spoke to you and you were like, this is the path?"
So advertising is $1 trillion superhighway of attention. Attention is what's most scarce. And whoever can garner a group of humans' attention, it you can you can catalyze anything in the world. And what I realized was that this $1 trillion superhighway of attention was not authentic. And it was forced upon us. We were forced to watch ads and people hated them. And
Mm.
I remember seeing a clear vision. I'm like, what if advertising could be more meaningful and could be more authentic and fun? And what if people wanted to see ads? What would that look like? And just by asking that question, it led me into being part of building one of the first social networks in the world. I ended up in Germany, not speaking any German, not knowing anything about a technology company. And it was LinkedIn's competitor at the time, Zing, which is a billion-dollar company today. I was part of the founding team, and my role was to figure out how do we monetize this platform without advertising. And what we discovered was that the value in this social network, we had about 5 million members, was in the communities, it was in the groups. It was the leaders of these groups that cared so much about their communities. And taking Seth Godin's permission marketing and then finding brands that were mission aligned, like Dove Self Esteem, and pairing up meaningful brands with meaningful content with community leaders, and then enabling those community leaders to craft their messages and inviting their members to come and participate in that conversation was where I saw the future of influencer marketing. It was
Cool.
2004. And I'm like, when that content was shared in these communities and groups, 25% of the members had watched it. There were hundreds of comments. It continued for months. And I'm like, this is the future of advertising. This is how every single brand will connect with their communities. It's through these community leaders, and I'm going to go build a company around that. So we pioneered the
Amazing. I
industry
mean,
in
first of
2004.
all, can I just say I'm kind of jealous that you have had these like moments of inspiration where you're like, okay, my purpose, and I have this clear purpose because I think a lot of people, including myself, I'm 40 and I still have no clue what my purpose is. So that's very cool that you had these moments of clarity and were able to follow through on it.
Thank you. Yeah, my favorite quote is, "It's the silence between the notes that makes the music." And if you're
Mhm.
constantly doing, then you don't allow that wisdom to
Totally.
reach you.
Totally. I mean, it's like you
So
going on that retreat and then 10 days and then you're like, "Oh, this bubbled to the surface." I actually just started I meditating more formally at like in person with more time, bigger meditation blocks. Like I've always done like 10 minutes in the morning. And I have a coach and she was like, you need to start going and having bigger spaces and bigger blocks of time. And yeah, I think for that exact reason, it's like you need the space without any distraction, without anything going on to like have clarity.
all the magic is in the unseen spaces.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you gotta give yourself permission to
Ugh, I know.
access the magic.
I heard this quote the other day from Eckhart Tolle about do you want to be friends or enemies with the present moment because you get to choose. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be enemies with the present moment. I want to be friends with it, like get into it and be here. So
That was one of the
I l-
first books I read when I was 17, The Power of Now.
really the
So
power of now.
I'm just winking at the universe that you mentioned Eckhart Tolle.
I love that. So then you're in Germany, you're working at Zing and you're like, I need to go down this influencer creator pathway. So what happens after that?
So we IPO the company. It's a wild success, and I moved to Spain. I moved to Barcelona, and it was very intentional because it was my third company. Honestly, I wasn't driven by money, I wasn't driven by power, I was driven by impact.
Okay.
And if you just have a look at how many startups are successful, it's very few. So I made a decision to enjoy the journey. Everyone says, enjoy the journey, not the destination. And I'm like, great, we're inventing something that doesn't exist. Nobody knew what I was talking about. So I chose Barcelona because to me, Barcelona represents the epicenter of human creativity. It's where Picasso and Gaudi, how people come together in community, they they live life. And so if I was going to pour my heart and soul and time into innovating something, it needed to be infused with that magic of what Barcelona represents. Honestly, I thought it would take 1 year to get it up and running, but it took a lot longer. It took 5 years. But I managed to attract some really extraordinary people, engineers, strategists. And one of my early investors was Esther Dyson, who sat on the board of WPP. So I ended up at these events in Club Med in Greece called Stream. It's where
Mhm. Yep.
every brand and agency would end up, and it was an unconference. And that is where I got to meet just hundreds of marketers over the years
Mm.
and really have them reflect back, what could this ecosystem look like?
Mhm.
So after being in Spain for 5 years, I quickly
So
realized,
can I ask a
yeah,
question? So you said something that you thought it was going to take 1 year, it took 5. How do you, as somebody who just started a business 2 years ago, and I'm like in that dip point where it's like, "Oh, this is really hard." How did you get through and just keep going, like, realizing, "I thought it was gonna take 1, I guess I could give up or I could keep going. Oh, it's gonna take," like, how did you have the, like, I guess, faith, is that the right word? To, like, just keep pushing?
yeah. So the 8 years that I was back in Australia, my boyfriend and I read about 1,000 books on human potential. And we were going to events like every week. So I had like one of the most extensive toolkits
Right,
on
you had a
what it
foundation.
means, a foundation to what it means to be human.
Mhm.
And one of the one of the principles is like you are exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And one of my
This
favorite authors is Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment. If
I
anybody
don't know
wants,
it.
if
Yeah,
anybody's
I don't know it.
embarking down a path of the unknown, read The Surrender Experiment. Actually, listen to it.
I'm gonna write it
And
down right
and
now.
so part of how we're wired as human beings is that we have this innate need to control everything and everyone around us. And the more that you try to control things and almost like brute force them to happen, that's when they don't happen. And so anything that's beautiful in life, to me, starting a company is like a masterpiece. It's a work of art. And it just needed time. And so giving yourself the spaciousness and the time and every day waking up and feeling into, am I on the right path here, is really the compass. And every cell in my being knew that the path that I was on was meant to be. And I didn't realize it would take me 20 years. I thought it would take, I thought actually my whole journey would be 5, because back then when everyone was starting tech companies, you'd be in and out within 5 years. And it's not until fast forward 20 years and you look back and you're like, oh, every single person, every experience I had, even though they were brutally hard at times, it has shaped who I am. It has, in essence, given me the foundation to navigate the second half of my life. And that is in
Yes.
service. That is in pure service to the collective. So I am grateful for every one of those
Well, now
moments.
I'm winking because you're talking about second half of life, and I am very passionate about, like, that's what happens in the second half of life, and that moment where you kind of, like, you get knocked down and you're like, "Well, where do I go from here?" And, like, people call it, like, a midlife crisis or whatever, but it's, like, really, it's like an awakening.
Chip Conley wrote a book, Midlife Chrysalis, and his metaphor is the caterpillar that turns into the butterfly. And there's this period of metamorphosis where it's like icky and gunk and it's dark and it's painful and you're going through this tunnel of transformation. And it's how we're born, it's how we die, and it's all these moments that we have throughout life. Giving childbirth is like that. I had 2 children. My husband and I had 5 kids between us. And that is that process is what enables the butterfly to
Mhm.
to form and to fly and to be able to then pollinate, around the world. And so it's these
Mm.
my life is a series of metaphors. As
Mhm.
marketers, metaphors are so powerful. And I've always believed that the more that we visualize and orientate ourselves to life, whether it's the bliss, whether it's the, despair, that it's necessary to to work with both of them, but to have these
Mhm.
metaphors that keep us
Mm.
going.
Mhm. So you so it's now been, is it 20 years that at Linqia that since you started it?
So 20 years since, I saw the vision of what the
Okay.
future was and,
Okay.
you know, the opportunity around influencer marketing. I came to the United States 14 years ago. I actually
Okay.
read the book Search, which was how the Google
The Google.
founders.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when Eric Schmidt came on board, that's where Google was able to completely catapult into the world. And so I am a huge believer in the alchemy of team, people, how one client, one team member, one investor can completely transform your life.
Mm.
So I made a decision to come to Silicon Valley. We talk about the Renaissance, and back then, it was when Uber and Lyft, and it was the whole collaborative economy that was booming.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I came to San Francisco. I was 7 months pregnant. Everyone thought I was crazy. They're like, "Hang on, you're an outsider." I mean, even when I went to set up a bank account, they're like, "You're an alien." I was pregnant. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I didn't work for a Silicon Valley company. And I was in search of a co-founder. I was in search of customers. I was in search of venture capitalists. I mean, you name it, the full stack of like launching a company in San Francisco. And I was introduced to my co-founder, Nada. And if anybody has worked with us over the last 14 years, it's the yin and the yang. It's pure alchemy of why the company is where we're at today, is because of our vast differences and how we come together to be able to truly execute, on this
Mhm.
vision. So I
Mhm.
moved to San Francisco and we checked all the boxes of bringing a co-founder on board. We raised venture capital. It was the Silicon Valley dream.
Mm.
And it's been one of the wildest rides of my life over the last 14 years.
I mean, choosing a co-founder is like choosing a husband or a wife or a
It is.
partner, you know? It's a complicated, long-standing relationship, and you have to have trust, and you have to have like, how did you find each other and then say, "Yeah, this is gonna work?"
Yeah, it's divine timing. He just exited his last company. I'd met his former co-founder when I was the 5 weeks that I came to Silicon Valley to scope out all of what was needed to launch this company. I was very clear on what I needed, and I did something different this time because it was my third company. Typically, people will gravitate towards bringing a co-founder on board that's like them. But being deep in Buddhist practice, my favorite quote is the stronger the wind, the stronger the tree. I was actually told by his co-founder before I met Nada, he said, Maria, this is such an ambitious vision. Like, if you can pull this off, this will be the biggest transformation this industry has ever seen. And I know exactly who could be your co-founder.
Cool.
And so when I met Nada, we spent half a day together every week for five weeks. And then he actually came to Spain right at about the time that I was giving birth to my first child, my daughter. And I feel like it was in my living room in Barcelona that we got to witness one another, where it was like, you are as crazy as I am. Like you're giving birth to a child and you're going to get on a plane and you're coming to San Francisco. Like who does that? You care so much. You care so much about this company, this vision, and that's ultimately what we're looking for in a business partner, in a husband, in a core group. That's how I go about selecting my core group. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend time with. That's how I go about selecting my friends. Do
Mhm.
you care as much about being in service to the collective as much as I do?
Mm.
And if that's a yes, you need to see it in moments of
Mhm.
truth.
Absolutely.
That's where relationships are forged.
Very cool. And so not to be because I love going on spiritual tangents, and I feel like we could have a whole conversation about that. But what does Linqia do, and how have you started to transform the industry? Or now you're obviously you're a well-established company. How have you transformed and sort of brought
Mm.
more of what we were talking about before, more of the like authenticity into advertising and marketing?
So Linkia is a managed service, tech-enabled influencer agency, and we focus on enterprise. So
Mm,
we made very intentional choices from day one to focus on the Fortune 100
mm,
because Fortune 100 is where the force multipliers are. The CMO of Bayer you had, like in pharmaceutical, in finance, that is where we can reach people at scale through this
mhm,
vision that we had, which was to bring more
mhm,
meaning and more
mhm,
impact through
mhm,
storytelling. Now, when we started the company, we didn't we weren't perceived as being a conscious storytelling company. Our mission was, and my role in the company was, we divide and conquered. My co-founder became the CEO to build the company, and I focus 100% of my time in market with brand marketers, with the CMOs, to truly guide them to a place that is so exhilarating and so exciting that by the time that they launch their influencer programs with any given number of creators and influencers, then we watch the ripples of impact unfold. And so we do that at scale for about 40, 50 brands.
Mm,
And we've automated, similar to Notion, we've automated a lot of the busy work through
mm.
building proprietary technology. And what we're focused on is strategy. And that is truly understanding a brand's all the interviews that you've done on this show and you speak to any given marketer, they all care about what their brand stands for, who their customers are, and our mission is to craft the stories and select the creators and the influencers that are going to drive the strongest resonance.
It makes sense. And people really have like a niche community with with the influencers they care about. They really like trust them. And so if they're going to talk about something, people are going to listen. And so I think that's beautiful. What are you excited about right now?
I am excited about the blending of real life with virtual. I'm personally passionate about human connection
Mhm.
and bringing people together in real life, and that is a trend that we're seeing.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're seeing a trend where brands are building deeper, authentic relationships with their creators, with their influencers. They're co-creating together,
Mhm.
and it's about telling the story that blends both of those worlds together.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just at some Fashion Week events last week and it was interesting because there were it was a lot about the relationship and like long-standing relationships that were built on trust. Which I think is, as you said, I think that's sort of a newer trend.
It is a newer trend. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Maria. This was one of my favorite conversations. I wish we had more time that we could just keep going. And I'll have to have you back again someday. Maybe we can do it in person because I love the thought that you put behind all of your answers, and I love talking about like how do you, one of my biggest things in life is like how do I blend the spiritual with the work, and how do you have your primary purpose of like finding your way aligned to your secondary purpose of like what you have to do in this world. And so it was really really beautiful to hear your answers.
It's beautiful to be on this path together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.